What is up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm bringing all of you guys my updated Shaddoll deck profile, Post-CROS Souls. So, with Cross Souls being out for maybe, a month by now, I have really been just experimenting and just playing around with the Shaddoll deck quite a bit, actually. I've been really trying to experiment with weird cards and all that kind of stuff, and really just playing around with the extra deck too, to just really get a solid build of Shaddolls that I personally am very much enjoying. So after a bit of testing, this is the list that I finally have settled upon, and I'm going to bring it to all of you guys today. So let's get right into it, starting off with the main deck, of course. Now then, starting us off, we have the 3 copies of Shaddoll Falco, because Falco is the one that will help us keep generating board advantage over and over and over with its flip effect and its graveyard effect. So we have 3 Falco, of course, here just to help us grind out our opponents and just ensure that we can have a way to sort of recycle our monster-based resources. So we do have 3 Falco. Following that, we have 3 copies of Shaddoll Squamata, because Squamata essentially acts as our upstart goblin of the deck, as whenever he is sent to the graveyard, we can send any other Shaddoll that we want. So he essentially acts as a sort of upstart goblin, and he can become any Shaddoll that we might want whenever we send him to grave. So of course we have the 3 Squamata. Following that, we have the 2 copies of Shaddoll Beast, because really 2 is all you really need. Beast is our draw power and whatnot, and really 3 is a bit too much. It will clog quite heavily. So that is why we only do run 2 copies. Next up, we have the 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog, because he is the one that will get us to our fusion spells and or our monsters that we might ever need at any given time. So, of course, we have to have 2 Shaddoll Hedgehog here, really just for consistency, to ensure that we will have ways to at least see our fusions if we for some reason do not see it early enough. Then, finally, for the last 2 Shaddolls I do run 2 copies of Shaddoll Dragon. Now, I know in pretty much a good majority of my past lists for Shaddolls, I have cut Dragon down to 1, but the fact is, I did decide to bump him up to 2 in this specific list, for the fact that Lose One Turn is now a card, and Lose One Turn is, in my opinion, very, very powerful and strong, so I really do not want to take an auto loss as soon as my opponent flips that card face up, so I do try and have at least some outs in my main deck in order to out that card, so that is why we do run the 2 Shaddoll Dragon now. So that'll be it for our Shaddoll lineup. Moving on to the other cards, this is a Star Seraph build, I should mention. So, of course, because this is the Star Seraph build, we have the 3 copies of Star Seraph Scepter, and the 3 copies, I'll just put it in the frame right now. We have 3 copies of Star Seraph Sovereignty. Of course, this is the pretty standard Star Seraph engine, really. If we're running Star Seraphs, this is pretty much the 6-card engine that you will run. And, of course, this is just a bonkers engine, really. It just gives you draw power, and it really is consistent for the fact that even if you do not draw into the pure Star Seraph combo, you can still use your Star Seraphs individually as stuff like Fusion Fodder, which is always really, really nice. Moving on after that, we have, of course, the 3 Mathematician, because Mathematician can get us any Shaddoll that we might want into our graveyard, and he essentially can be a Jin out and or a +1 for us whenever he is summoned and activated. So that is always pretty nice. Then, following Mathematician, we have the 3 copies of Effect Veiler, because we do not want the Necros of Trishula to ever go off, after all. So we do run 3 Effect Veiler to just try and stop our opponent's effects before they can do anything devastating to us. Next up, we have the 1 copy of Parapara Cerberus, because this is the card that will make our Mathematicians a 1-card Jin out, and even then, it also is pretty good to have Cerberus in the deck for the fact that we can use it for Earth Fusion Fodder just to get it into grave, and he just becomes a resource for us to use to just get some simple spot removal. So that's always pretty nice. Then we actually do main board 1 copy of Thunder King Ryo for the fact that Cliford and Necros are probably the decks to beat nowadays. So we want to have some way to really just help us in those matchups, and having Thunder King here to really just shut down all of Necros' plays as well as turn off our opponent's Cliford Scout is very, very strong. So that is why we do run 1 Thunder King. Then we have two more monsters, which are our main deck boss monsters of the deck, which is one copy of BLS and one copy of Dark Arm Dragon. Now, BLS is pretty self-explanatory. He's pretty much here in almost every single Shaddoll variant. Now, the reason why I do run one Dark Arm now is because of the fact that the Star Seraph engine can help us just really draw into our cards ASAP. And just with that ability, I guess you could say it's sort of like a turbo idea with the Star Seraph engine, we can run Dark Arm to just help us propel through our deck to hopefully see that Dark Arm fairly early game so that we can just use Dark Arm to just really blow out our opponent. So that'll be rounding off our actually fairly large monster lineup. Moving on to the spell cards, we're going to begin with our Shaddoll Fusion spells. We have our 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion, our 2 copies of regular Shaddoll Fusion, and then our single copy of 1 Nef Shaddoll Fusion. Now, the 3 El Shaddoll Fusion is fairly standard. It's probably the best Shaddoll Fusion out of the bunch, so that is why we do maximize on it. We have the 2 Shaddoll Fusion because of the fact that the 2 top decks really are not able to let us abuse Shaddoll Fusion that much, as Necros have the ability to just tribute off their extra deck monsters for Valkyris effects, and Cloyfor, you really cannot abuse Shaddoll Fusion anyway, as majority of their Pendulum Summon monsters from extra deck will usually be tributed off. So that is why we only do cut Shaddoll Fusion down to 2. And then we also have the 1 Nef Shaddoll Fusion to help us get access to stuff like Anoya Tylus and Shekinaga whenever we might need it. I should also mention that Nef Shaddoll Fusion is fairly relevant for the fact that during times when you might break into like multiple Shaddolls, as usually in a Shaddoll deck, you will find yourself I guess you could say drawing into a lot of Shaddolls at one time sometimes, and it can just really be a slow hand. So I should mention that Nef Shaddoll Fusion is fairly significant for the fact that it can really just help you get out of those really slow hands if you end up drawing into it, as rather than forcing yourself to make a window if you were to use any of the other Shaddoll Fusions, you can actually use Nef Shaddoll Fusion with 2 Shaddolls to make pretty much any Shaddoll Fusion that you want, which is really nice and can just really help you out in cloggy situations. Next up, we have the 1 Allure of Darkness to just help us propel through our deck more, to help us see our fusion spells faster and whatnot. And this is also kind of, I guess you could say, a way to get our Dark Arm Dragon out of our hand if we end up drawing into it very late game. So this is just another way to just help us get through our deck and just get rid of some really dead cards like Dark Arm Dragon at times, and sometimes on occasion Shaddoll Beast as well. Following that, we have the 1 copy of Soul Charge because of the fact that we can use it to revive a ton of our fusions back. It can be used to revive our Star Seraphs back. And just really, nowadays, Soul Charge is a very strong card in Shaddoll, so that's why we do run it. Finally, we have 3 more spells, which is all just the mass destruction monster removal. And that is 1 Raigeki and Double Dark Hole. Obviously here for stuff like the Jinlock and very established boards that we do not want to just stay on board. So that is why we do run the 2 Dark Hole and the 1 Raigeki to round off our spells. Now then, for the final card in our main deck, we actually do run 1 copy of Shaddoll Core. Now, Core is fairly significant because of the fact that, firstly, it can help you combo into El Shaddoll Anoya Tylus against Necros, which is pretty nice. And really just, I have the 1 Shaddoll Core in here just to act as just a sort of attribute filler, as we do not run any, like, straight water monsters in the deck, as you guys saw. So having Shaddoll Core in the main deck to just help us get into a diverse range of fusions, I guess you could say, is very helpful. And of course, also Shaddoll Core's recruitability effect from the graveyard is also pretty nice as well. So that is going to round off our 40 card main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, we start off with the 3 copies of El Shaddoll Nephilim, because Nephilim is probably the best one, of course. We know that she is the greatest because she is our Catastor, big boss, whatever. She is just outstanding, so of course we have to run 3 copies of her. Moving on, we have our other El Shaddoll monsters, starting off with the 1 copy of El Shaddoll Winda. Now, I have decided to cut Winda down to 1 for the fact that within testing, Winda really is only good against things like the Mirror or Burning Abyss. And the fact is, those matchups really are already in your favor because of other cards that I do run in my extra deck personally. So I really felt that having 2 Winda wasn't all that necessary, as I did also want to try and squeeze in other monsters into my extra deck. So that is why I did decide to cut Winda down to 1. Following that, we have our one copy of El Shaddoll Anoya Tylus, straight from the brand new Cross Soul set. Now, we only have one Anoya Tylus in here, and I know a lot of Shaddoll players are actually running two, but the reason why I personally like one better than two is firstly for the fact that, again, I wanted to include other monsters in my extra deck, so I did have to try and cut some space. But the fact is that Anoya Tylus acts as a sort of floodgate for Necros, primarily anyway. And you really will not be trying to go balls out first turn Anoya Tylus play, I guess you could say, as you really just want to use Anoya Tylus to just help make sure you lock down your opponent to go for game. I guess in that sense, it's sort of like your own version of Jinlock versus Necros. So as such, we should be using it sort of like that, rather than trying to, I guess you could say, hide behind our Anoya Tyluses. We should try and use it just to propel our plays, which is very, very nice, and that's why I only feel one is necessary. Finally, for the last El Shaddoll we do run, we have the one copy of El Shaddoll Shekinaga. Again, because Shekinaga is our big defense person in our extra deck. And her effect is still pretty good, as she is the Trap Tricks Trap Hole. And, of course, she's probably also pretty easy to make for the fact that we do run quite a few Earth monsters. So that will be the last El Shaddoll that we do run. Moving on to the Synchros, we have the one Leo, Keeper of the Sacred Tree, for the fact that it's pretty standard to go into Leo using one of your Nephilims and a Falco for the fact that Nephilim can float you back your fusion, as well as you can have Leo on the field as a huge stick. So of course, because this is probably actually the most common Synchro I'll be going into in Shaddolls, so it's good to have Leo just to act as that big stick that is very hard to out at times. Following that, we actually have two level 7 Synchros in my extra deck. We have the one Clearwing Synchro Dragon and the one Black Rose Dragon. Now, Clearwing is here for the fact that it just, in my opinion, has just an outstanding effect. Really, Clearwing's effect is, in my opinion, very underrated, and it's very strong. As if you can make Clearwing against Necros fairly early, you can just really lock down their board and force them to make weird plays like Unicore plays and whatnot when they might not want to. So it's always really nice to have to just help negate your opponent's big monster effects, and also to kind of protect your stuff like your El Shaddoll, Nephilims, and whatnot. Also, accompanying Clearwing, we have the one Black Rose Dragon, because I really do like to have at least one board nuke somewhere in my extra deck just so I can neg my opponent really hard if I ever find the need to, and so that is why we do run the one Black Rose Dragon to act as that board nuke. Now, those two will be rounding off our Synchro lineup. Moving on to our XYZ lineup, and I should, I guess you could say, give a note that all of this XYZ lineup here is all going to be geared towards the Star Seraphs, as we will really never be going into them outside of whenever we do go into the Star Seraph combo. So, beginning with the Star Seraph monsters that we do run for the engine, we have the one copy of Evil Swarm Ouroboros and the one copy of Stellar Knight Deltaros. Ouroboros and Deltaros are the fairly standard Star Seraph monsters that we will be summoning off of those combos, as Ouroboros does have the ability to act as half of a number 80 Rhapsody. He also has the ability to act as a kind of like a Mind Crush by ripping a card out of our opponent's hand, as well as he can be a Compulse, which is also pretty powerful. We have him here as well as the Deltaros being here just for simple destruction, and really these are going to be the guys that we will primarily be going into through our Star Seraph combo. Following that, we have two more Stellar Knight XYZs in the form of one Stellar Knight Ptolemaeus and one Stellar Knight Constellar Diamond. Diamond is here obviously for the mirror match as well as the Burning Abyss matchup. Again, like I said with Winda, this is the reason why I decided to cut Winda down to 1, for the fact that Diamond is, in my opinion, much better in those matchups than Winda, which is why I decided to cut Winda to 1. And Ptolemaeus is here just to help us get into Diamond easier, as well as it can actually give us rank 5 access whenever we do use the Star Seraph engine. So that's also pretty neat. And as you'll see just in a second, we do run 2 targets for Ptolemaeus that are pretty cool. Now then, for those Ptolemaeus targets, we do run 1 copy of Shark Fortress and 1 copy of Constellar Pleiades. Now, Pleiades is obviously here as probably one of, if not the best rank 5 in the game, for the fact that it can be an either player's turn Compulse, which can be just really strong and can just really disrupt your opponent's plays. And then we also have the one Shark Fortress in here too, just to help us get some OTKing potential, as it gives the Star Seraph engine a lot more punching power, and by itself, Shark Fortress is also pretty cool for the fact that it can also act as a pseudo wall, as your opponent can only attack Shark Fortress as long as it's face up on the field. So again, we also have Shark Fortress here just to really help just give us some punching power with our Star Seraph engine. Alrighty guys, well that is it for my updated Shaddoll deck profile for this Post-CROS Souls format. I hope you all did enjoy, and as always, this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace.